Welcome to Secrets of Tomorrow's Leaders. My name is Corin Young with RK Studios, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Daniela Echez. Hello, Daniela.
Hi, Corin.
How's it going?
Going good. How are you doing?
Good. We're doing a remote podcast. This is our first time doing a remote podcast from 3 different locations. So we'll see how this goes. And we're joined with a special guest. Daniela, I'll let you go ahead and introduce her.
Yes, today we have Staci Daniels-Sommers, who's a licensed clinical social worker, educator, and consultant. Staci began facilitating intergroup dialogue over 15 years ago as a college student and has continued educating others on diversity, inclusion, and ways to connect across differences at schools, local communities, and nonprofit settings. She currently holds a degree in psychology and a master's degree in social work. She is also currently a psychotherapist providing culturally responsive support to clients across California, especially during these difficult times. Welcome, Staci.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. This is an important conversation about the diversity and inclusion, and it's cool to hear that that's something you've been doing for 15 years. Is that something that you've always kind of had your eye on?
Yeah, it actually is. A lot of times people end up in their fields because of how they grew up. And so I grew up in a town where for a long time I was one of the very few African-American or Black students or people in my class. So diversity for me was just sort of like everyday life. And as I grew up and into high school, it got more interesting as my community I grew up in Michigan is actually really diverse. So I grew up with lots of folks from lots of different religions, different backgrounds. We did get more diverse as I continued on in my town at school. And so it was like a natural part of the conversation. And so when I got to college, it continued. I went to University of Michigan. And they have a program that they actually started now, I think 30 years ago, called the Program in Intergroup Relations, where the whole point is to help equip college students with the skills to work effectively across difference as they go on to their careers. So it definitely was something that was a part of my life, and I was really excited to be a part of the program when I got to college and then be a consultant with the program and take it with me in my professional journey too.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what made you want to take what you saw and your experiences and turn that into something that you're doing for a career?
Yeah, it I kind of fell into it, I guess, as a student. And I feel like when you're in college, there's always like hallmarks of your college experience. So the fun one for us was we had Michigan was in an affirmative action battle back then in the early 2000s. So it was a very hot topic on campus. And we're no stranger to hot topics right now. We're in that kind of moment too. And so what I loved about it is it gave me actual practical skills to use when talking to someone who either I wasn't familiar with, like where they were from or what their life was like, or we had seemingly a difference of opinion on, a political issue or misunderstanding of values. And so it gave me concrete skills to kind of slow down, learn how to listen to the other person and reflect that I understood what they were saying, and then also find connection in what they were saying while adding my own perspective as well. Which I have found really effective in my jobs, and also, now with working with people in a therapeutic setting, using it to get to know them better, but also giving them those skills too to be able to use in their lives.
All right. Yeah. Now, when you talk about diversity and differences, you're not just talking about Black people, white people, people of Hispanic descent. You're talking about what other kind of differences are you seeing?
Yeah, so those are important differences, and it's kind of all meshed together, right? So I'm not only Black, I'm from Michigan, which is the Midwest, which is special. I live in California. I'm a woman, I'm a mom, I'm married to someone who's a different race from me, he's white. I happen to be religious. I happen to be an extrovert. So there's all kinds of pieces to me that are important. And so diversity can look all kinds of ways. I think it is important to delineate that some of the ways that we're different, society has ascribed value to them in one way or the other. And so that's important to note. But the cool part is, when you actually sit down and talk with somebody, you get the full picture, not just a snapshot. So you begin to understand how all of those different pieces of people interplay to help understand why they might have a certain perspective on things, or why they might be curious about something or might be worried about something. It's important to note the individual differences or preferences that we have or experiences that we have, along with some of the more global things that kind of group us together in the context of our larger community.
So Staci, how do you actually start that conversation? I've noticed people in the last couple of months have been difficulty in even having a simple conversation. So how would you kick us off, so to speak, and even in our training?
One of the issues that's happening right now is that we're seeing each other in like memes. So people like post up like, a sentence or two that describes how they feel about something. The challenge was that as we don't understand where that's coming from. And so the important part of really being able to talk across difference is to be curious and ask questions. And so the first part of when I do an intergroup dialogue process, we spend a lot of time on getting to know each other. My parents named me Staci because it means to rise above. And so that's because I had an older sibling who passed away, older sister who passed away before I was born. And so that it has a lot of meaning to me. And so, just by asking simple questions to get to know people, like, what was it like where you grew up? Or, why do you like surfing or whatever it is, helps us kind of gather more information about what's important to them. And then we can begin to understand, why they have certain beliefs and why those beliefs are important to them. And so that's where it's best to begin. It's really hard to do that with social media because all we get are snapshots. We don't get a full picture. So I know that's a challenge for folks right now, is because a lot of our interactions are on social media and these like memes and sayings and stuff that we see.
True. And even then on social media, most of us try to be responsible enough to give a true snapshot, or at least as true as you can possibly get at that point, without influencing one side or another, just trying to keep an open dialogue.
No, I don't know about that. I feel like I try to influence.
Oh, that's you.
Well, I mean, depending on your perspective, some of us feel like we have an obligation to.
Yeah.
So even that, we don't know why Daniela posts something or why Corin posts something. Even the fact of you all having different reasons for posting, we may assume that our reason for posting is the same as another, and that then colors how we receive the information.
Right.
So
That's
it
fair.
just was a good example of how misunderstandings can happen super easily.
So what kind of things do you do professionally? I know you said you're a psychotherapist, but what kind of jobs have you had that involve diversity and inclusion and how to deal with people that are different than yourself?
So I'll take this moment to plug social work. So I'm trained as a social worker. In my time, I've been a consultant specifically around diversity and inclusion. So I worked with nonprofits to help them do strategic planning around how to do better with hiring or programming. I've trained people at universities or K-12 schools in how to think about diversity issues in those settings. And then I've also, throughout that time, always had a little private practice, which is now my full-time gig, kind of thanks to COVID. In that it's really flexible, so I can stay home with my kids and still work on my own hours. And so I've been able to bounce around because social work allows you to do that. You get trained in, obviously the clinical side, but also I have training in policy and evaluation. So I know how to evaluate programs. I have training in administration. I know about how to run programs. So I kind of get to bounce around depending on, what my lifestyle needs are and where I'm at in the community and how I can contribute.
Is all of your work being done from home now?
Yep. So I'm fully remote. So I see clients, which one client recently said how cool that is. She lives in a rural part of the state where there's not as many opportunities and options for getting support from a therapist. And because most of us are online right now, she can look and therapists can see anybody in their state.
Oh, yeah.
She can look and find a better fit because she has access to the entire state for people to see, because everybody's online, not just how far she can get to driving.
Yeah, that's great. I hadn't considered that.
Mm-hmm.
So how's that working for an extrovert like yourself?
I'm doing okay. And I think I'm one of the extroverts that will seek out things. So I think it helps that being a therapist, I talk to people at least every other day. And so that's nice. I'm really into Zoom wine tastings and stuff like that. So I've been able to connect with friends that way. I'm pretty good at like the Zoom connecting. I worked from home 3 years prior for a startup company. So I was on Zoom doing trainings and meetings all day long prior to COVID. So I'm pretty good at that kind of communication. And then I take my long drives to get out and do whatever, go to Target and chat with people I don't know, like I always have done. So I'm hanging in there.
What about the ones that are introverts or ambiverts like myself?
I think COVID is, and this whole being distant can be hard for any vert, intra or enter, extra, or anything in between, just depending on your circle of connectivity, it can be hard. So introverts might have been like, yes, for a while, no one's asking me to go anywhere. And, but then at the same time, all of us need human connection. So, I have a lot of, people I work with who are both introverts and extroverts who are saying that they're either really kind of thriving in some of this stuff or are really having a hard time, or, it's day to day. If you ask me on a Thursday evening how I'm doing after a week of distance learning and all of that, and then also not being able to go outside because of the smoke, I was pretty cranky last Thursday. So
I was right there with you.
It's both hard for folks, but also blessings for folks in the same way. So it's kind of a mixed bag for all of us.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of waiting for when this whole thing is over, but I think it's not going to go back to just how it was in January. Like it'll be a little bit different, at least for a couple years. And, we'll just get used to that. We'll make the best of it.
I agree. And, that piece that client shared about being able to have access to a therapist a little easier, that's one of the positive changes. I think a lot of therapists, even if we might go back to our offices, we may hold spots for folks who want to do virtual. And so there's all kinds of little changes to our behavior it'll be interesting to see, how it all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, really, I guess that goes for any kind of business. For school, you don't really, I guess for a long time, we didn't really have to pick a school that was within driving distance. But I think more and more people are just getting used to distance learning. And there's so many things that you can do now, just, through the magic of the internet. We can collaborate. It's kind of neat. It kind of opened up the whole world.
Yeah, it's been really fascinating being home and watching teachers do what they do. During normal times, you drop your kid off and see it, 2:15 or whatever. My son's kindergarten teacher, even on Zoom, worked her magic of being a kindergarten teacher, engaging the kids and knowing when one kid's struggling and being able to pull them back in and refocus them. I mean, it's just amazing. So I will, I used to work in a school too. And so I always appreciate what teachers do, but to see it real time every day, I think there's a lot more appreciation for teachers.
I hope so. I think it's kind of worked the other way, though. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of backlash towards teachers, especially with teachers saying that they don't want to go back into the classroom until it's safe. Or I see people saying, "Oh, since our kids are learning at home, we shouldn't even be paying teachers right now because I'm teaching my student." But it's teachers are working extra hard. It's not easy having people, with their cameras off or not wanting to participate. It's hard to gauge where they are. I see some of these teachers on TikTok, especially with the young kids. They still have to be on, fully animated. They're putting 200% in every day.
Yeah, they're doing a lot.
They're doing a lot. And, this is one of those times where empathizing with each other is really important. So for the parents that are really frustrated, while I, am very supportive of teachers, I can also empathize with that frustration of having my kid home and disagreeing with what's happening and not feeling that I have an outlet to share it, or it's just a frustrating thing. And so while I am grateful for my teacher, and I was one of the folks who chose to keep that my kid home so that other kids could go to school when school's open and it was one less kid to worry about, and I have a life where that works for me. I can also really empathize with like the parents who are really struggling, especially my friends who are a household of 2 full-time people working, who also just like mental health wise need a break from their kids and don't have access to grandparents to take care of the kids for a little bit, or there's a lot of complications. And so just no matter what my beliefs are, I being able to empathize with the difficulties that other people share that I don't experience is really important.
Well, even the ones that don't have children at home, some of the things I've been hearing from folks that are still employed and are still working from home is that now that everybody knows that you're home, bosses are suddenly asking for you to pretty much work around the clock. You're trying to have some semblance of family, friend, or what little socialness you can do, but they're virtually or not. And they're struggling because it's like, how do you find that balance of telling your boss, like, I know I'm home, but I also have a life and other things to do. Just because I'm home, don't just dial me at like 10 o'clock at night and be like, just a thought and popped into your head and said, can you work on that right now? It's like, no, can we go back to normal hours of schedules? And so I've been hearing a lot of folks that they're still struggling with that too. They don't want to jeopardize that their bosses are going to say, if you can't do it, then we'll just find someone else to hire and work and do the hours that we want remotely.
Danielle, that's a really good question. And being in the startup world for 3 years with a direct report to the founder and CEO, I know the life of being asked interesting questions at 10 p.m. at night and having to answer them. I think one thing that I've reflected on, and some of my clients have even talked to me about, is that there are challenges in life, no matter, COVID presents a certain set of challenges, but life prior to COVID wasn't perfect either. And so using that to sort of challenge any cognitive distortions or dissonance we have with sort of being frustrated. So that means acknowledging the realness of the frustration. And also, being able to say, like any other challenge, how do I work through it? And so one thing I hear in what you just said about, if I don't answer my boss, they might can me, is, that could be true, or it could be us projecting that, like we feel the pressure to do it, and therefore we think but actually our boss knows that it's a ridiculous time to be emailing us, and they really don't expect a response, but they just want to get it out of their head onto, somewhere so they don't forget it, right? So it could go either way. And so I work a lot with my clients on it, and it's funny. All of them, like a few sessions in, will go, I had this problem prior to COVID. Like, COVID is making it look a certain way because of changes to my job or family, but this was there before.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because you know, being in HR before, at least when people were in-house, you kind of had those discussions with those bosses and you'd be like, respect the time away from work. It's their time of rest. And now it's like, well, everybody's home, so your rest is kind of like flexible. And in some ways, you're asking for flexibility. So it's kind of trying to find that balance.
Yeah.
And just setting
And
expectations like I'm still going to go, I'm not going to answer at 10 p.m. unless it's like an emergency because I'm still going to go to bed kind of thing.
And just like with HR, this, there's always conundrums or people trying to work together that have problems that are not easy, they're not clarified, easy or clear, they're not clear lines. So it's all about, like you said, working together to figure out what works best for supervisor and supervisee. Yeah,
because I remember I used to have a boss that was like that every evening. Like she would go home and just like email. But like the first round of discussions was kind of like, no, I don't expect you to be checking your emails at like, midnight and answering the questions like when you get in or when you log on, that's when you answer and that's when you work, unless I put like urgent.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, I think, because a lot of people working from home in an 8-hour day, you might actually be doing 4 hours of work if you're there, like, with your kids and just, how it is, you're in your pajamas. It's not really the same. And so it kind of balances out. Some of us are doing a lot more work. Some of us doing a lot less. I wanted to talk about this training that you're doing with JCI Santa Clarita. It's on Wednesday, September 30th at 6 p.m. It's via Zoom. So it's anybody can attend from anywhere, right? They don't even have to be local.
There you go.
Just like what we were saying before. So training is called Connecting Across Differences. Can you kind of give us a sneak peek as to what that's about?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conversation about coming together and, how to work with folks who have different values than you, different views than you, a different life story than you. And what I wanted to do is actually provide concrete skills. So literally, here's how you say things, or here's the ways you can talk about things where it can help de-escalate or kind of recenter the conversation. And make sure that both you're feeling heard and so is the person you're talking to. So we'll go over a couple of actual concrete things. We'll actually do some practicing with some fun, breakout room stuff. And hopefully people will leave with some skills that they can use. It's getting to be going to be interesting, fun for the next couple months as we get close to an election. People are feeling lots of ways about that. And so hopefully these can be useful as you talk to friends and family about election stuff or anything else going on that there's some difference of opinion or misunderstanding.
Yeah, I've got some close friends and family with whom I do not agree with politically at all. So it'll be interesting to see how we can best have these discussions maybe over Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we used to joke about Thanksgiving at the university because we'd have these kids, and they're not kids, they're adults, in class talking about how to do this difference thing. And then like Thanksgiving was the test. We'd see how they did at the dinner table when they come back for class the next week. And that was always a fun discussion.
Nice. All right. Well, Staci, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. Looking forward to your training. Again, that is on September 30th at 6 p.m. So we'll see you then.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to it. Y'all, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Our
See
pleasure.
you then.